All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into the fascinating world of Ratan Tata.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Through this book, Tata's Leadership Experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're really excited to kind of get into these firsthand accounts of what it was like working with him.
Absolutely. And these are not just, random accounts. These are individuals who were part of the Tata Administrative Service.
Right, the TAS officers.
The TAS officers, exactly.
Yeah.
So, they were handpicked, mentored by him. So you're getting a very unique perspective.
It's like getting a peek behind the curtain, right?
Exactly.
So if you are interested in leadership in business or just kind of, what it's like to work with a legend, this is going to be a good deep dive.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that the book starts with is Mukund Rajan's experience.
Okay.
And he was Ratan Tata's longest serving executive assistant.
Yeah, and chief of staff.
That's right.
For over a decade, I think.
Yeah. So, he's got to have some good stories. And it starts with this almost unbelievable encounter with Tata during his interview.
Really?
Right after he'd finished the induction program.
Right.
And so Rajan kind of he's fresh out of this program, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, you know what? I don't have an MBA.
Oh, wow.
I don't have a lot of business experience.
And he told him that straight up.
He did.
Yeah.
And you know what Tata said to him?
What did he say?
He said, all you need is good common sense.
Isn't that interesting?
It's kind of like a breath of fresh air, isn't it?
It is.
Because, there's this whole kind of, I don't know, almost like elitism in the business world sometimes.
Yeah.
You have to have gone to the right schools. You have to have all the right, lines on your resume.
The credentials.
Right, the credentials. But Tapa's no, you just need common sense.
It's about that fundamental ability to think and adapt and problem solve.
Right.
And, that to me speaks volumes about what he truly valued. Not just degrees or accolades, but raw intelligence, that ability to, think on your feet and make smart decisions.
And I feel like that's such an important lesson for anyone, really.
Absolutely.
Even if you're not gunning for, a CEO position or whatever.
Right.
Sometimes it's just trusting your gut,
Mm-hmm.
being able to think clearly, practically. That can be more valuable than any, fancy degree.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
And it wasn't just about business acumen either.
Right.
The book talks a lot about his humility and his empathy, especially in how he interacted with stakeholders.
I think that's a really crucial point because it would have been so easy, especially in his position, to maintain this kind of transactional approach to business.
Right.
You do this, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But Tata really understood that human side of things.
Yes.
That decisions have a ripple effect.
Yeah.
And he led with that awareness.
Yeah. And there are a few examples in the book, but the one that always gets me is his approach to dealing with the unions.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Instead of just trying to shut them down or, just kind of bulldoze over their concerns.
Yeah.
He made it a point to really listen to them, understand where they were coming from.
Right.
And, even when it was tough, even when they were really kind of
at odds.
Yeah, at odds.
Yeah.
He still treated them with respect.
And tried to find a solution that worked for everybody.
Exactly. It's he understood that, at the end of the day, a business isn't just about the bottom line. It's about people.
Yeah.
And, I think that's something that sometimes gets lost.
Totally.
In the, in the corporate world.
It's we get so caught up in the numbers sometimes that we forget that there are actual human beings who are being impacted by these decisions.
Yeah. And I think Tata never lost sight of that.
It's pretty remarkable.
It is.
Especially when you think about the level that he was operating on.
Absolutely.
And it's not he was all business all the time either.
No.
The book talks about how he had this really playful side too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Remember that story about the 3 S's drawing?
Oh, yeah. What was that?
So he's with a bunch of these young TAS officers and they're all kind of
nervous, I'm sure.
Yeah. A little bit intimidated probably.
Yeah.
And he's hey, let me show you guys something.
Okay.
And he pulls out this piece of paper.
Okay.
And he's I want you to look at this and tell me what you see.
What is it?
So it's basically 3 S's, all kind of
wonky?
Yeah, kind of swirly and
okay.
And they're all looking at it, trying to figure out what is the deep meaning behind this.
Right. Is this some sort of
right.
leadership lesson?
Is this a Rorschach test.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And he's like,
Just what do you see?
Yeah, like, tell me what you see. And finally somebody's like,
What?
It looks like 3 S's.
Yeah.
He's like, you got it. I'm a terrible artist.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
And it's just like this moment of like,
yeah,
levity and humor.
just breaking the ice.
Yeah. And I think that's so important because
right.
it's like, as a leader, it's important to be like, authoritative and visionary and all that. But it's also important to be able to like
be human.
Yeah, to be human.
To be relatable.
To be relatable.
Yeah.
And I think that story just like really illustrates that.
Yeah, it shows that he didn't take himself too seriously.
Right.
Which is so refreshing.
Especially in that kind of like high stakes world.
Exactly.
But it wasn't all fun and games.
Oh, no.
There were definitely like some more serious moments in his life and in his career.
Of course.
And the book actually talks about how like over time, his public persona seemed to shift a bit.
Really? How so?
Like Mukund Rajan talks about how he kind of became more of this like senior statesman figure, especially after the 2008 Taj attack.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
It's like you can just imagine like going through something like that.
Of course.
Must have just been, I don't know, like world changing.
World changing. And I mean, just the weight of that tragedy.
Right.
On his shoulders.
Like I can't even imagine.
Yeah. And having to lead through that.
Right.
Having to be the face of resilience and strength.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to like run a successful business, but it's another thing entirely to like lead people through a crisis like that.
Absolutely. And I think that's where true leadership is tested.
Yeah.
When the stakes are high, when the pressure's on.
Right.
That's when you really see what someone's made of.
And it's interesting because it's like, on the one hand, you have this like, incredibly tragic event.
Right.
But then on the other hand, it's like, he really rose to the occasion.
He did. And like you were saying, like became this symbol of like...
Yeah, of strength and resilience. And I think in a way that like transcended business, it became something much larger than that.
And I think that's what's so fascinating about his story.
Yeah, no.
It's not just a business story.
Yeah, it's a human story.
It's a human story. Yeah. It's a story about leadership. It's a story about resilience. It's a story about empathy.
It really is. And it's inspiring.
It is inspiring.
To see someone like him navigate those challenges with such grace and dignity.
Absolutely. And I think there's so much that we can learn from him.
Oh, absolutely.
Both in terms of like how to be a better leader.
Yeah.
But also just how to be a better human being.
I agree.
So another perspective in the book that I found really interesting was Wakhlu's.
Okay.
He also became a TAS officer.
And he had this really interesting encounter with Tata during his TAS interview process, which actually took place years before he actually joined the program.
Wow.
And what's so remarkable about this story is that it really highlights Tata's empathy. Okay. So like Wakhlu goes through this whole interview process.
Right.
And, it's like...
It's intense.
It's a big deal. I mean, to even be considered for the TAS program, it's like a huge honor.
Yeah.
And so he goes through this whole thing.
Right.
And he doesn't get selected.
Oh, no.
And, he's obviously...
disappointed.
Yeah, disappointed.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Tata made it a point to personally address the candidates who hadn't been selected. Right. Like he took the time to speak to them directly.
That's amazing.
To acknowledge their disappointment. Wow. And to offer them words of encouragement.
That is incredible.
Can you imagine? You've just been told that you didn't get this this
dream job.
Yeah. And then Ratan Tata himself comes up to you and talks to you. I don't know.
Unheard of.
It just speaks volumes.
It does.
About his character.
It's about recognizing the value of every individual.
Yes.
Even if they didn't get that particular opportunity.
Right. And I think that's something that though many leaders could learn from.
Yeah. Sometimes we forget.
It's so easy to get caught up.
I know. And the bottom line, the numbers?
Yeah. The bottom line, the numbers, who's succeeding, who's failing.
Yeah.
And we forget that
there's a human being.
These are actual human beings.
Behind every application.
With feelings and dreams and aspirations.
Exactly. And I think that Tata never lost sight of that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It is.
And, speaking of his attention to detail and his commitment to excellence.
Yeah.
There's this great story in the book about the Tata Inc. Gala.
Oh, tell me about that.
So they're having this big gala in the U.S.
Okay.
And Tata's very clear
that
this event has to reflect the stature
Right.
of the Tata Group.
Makes sense.
And it would have been so easy
Right.
to just like, you know.
Phone it in?
Yeah. Phone it in and be like, it's just a party.
Right.
But he understood that every interaction,
Yes.
every event was an opportunity to reinforce the brand.
To make a statement.
And so he was very involved in making sure that everything was perfect.
From the venue to the food to the guest list.
Everything.
And I think that...
I mean, that's attention to detail.
It's incredible.
Right.
And it's not about being controlling.
Right.
It's about understanding that every detail matters.
Absolutely.
And that everything reflects...
It's all part of the bigger picture.
On the brand, on the company.
Exactly.
And on him, ultimately.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important lesson for anyone.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're running a company or just trying to live a good life.
Yeah.
It's like paying attention to the details.
Yeah.
It shows that you care.
It shows that you care.
It shows that you're invested.
And it shows that you take pride in your work.
Exactly.
And speaking of like, you know, fascinating individuals who had the opportunity to interact with Tata.
Yeah.
So Bhasin's story is really interesting.
Okay. Tell me about her.
So she's another TAS officer.
Okay.
And she actually had a really interesting encounter with Tata during her interview process.
Oh, really? Okay.
So she's actually in the middle of her interview with him.
Okay.
And, you know, it's like this very formal setting.
Right.
And he asks her this question that is so unexpected.
What did he ask her?
He asks her how she manages her hair.
Her hair?
While practicing judo.
While practicing judo?
Yeah, because she had really long hair at the time.
I see.
And it's just like so specific. It's such a like, you know, left field question.
I know, like you're expecting.
You would think.
Yeah, like tell me about your leadership skills or something.
Right, exactly.
Not like, how do you keep your hair out of your face when you're doing judo?
But I think it speaks volumes.
It does.
About his ability to connect with people on a human level.
Right, because
it's like affirming.
Yeah, like you're here with like, you know, this titan of industry.
Yeah.
And he's asking you about your hair.
Like he's genuinely curious.
Yeah.
And I think it probably made her feel seen.
Right. Like he was really paying attention.
Exactly. And not just like, you know, going through the motions.
Yeah. Like he was actually present in that moment.
Yeah.
And I think that that's such a rare quality.
Especially for someone.
Especially at that level.
At his level.
Yeah. Where you could so easily just be.
Yeah.
You know, going through the motions.
Like you've met a million people today.
Yeah, exactly.
But he was really present. He was present. And you know what else I think that story illustrates?
What's that?
Is his attention to detail.
Oh, yeah.
Because he noticed that.
Yeah.
He noticed her hair and he remembered it and he asked about it.
It's like those little things.
So those little things make a big difference.
That make people feel seen and heard.
Absolutely.
And, you know, speaking of small gestures.
Yeah.
That speak volumes. Mm-hmm. There's this other story that Sonu Bhasin tells.
Oh, really? Tell me.
About how Tata held the door open for her.
Held the door open for her.
Yeah. And it's like, you know.
Such a small thing.
On the surface, it's such a small thing.
Yeah.
But in that context,
yeah,
it's huge.
It speaks volumes.
It's like he treated everyone with the same level of respect and courtesy.
Regardless of their position.
Regardless of their position.
Yeah. Whether you're the CEO or the person who's holding the door open for him.
Exactly.
He treated everyone with that same level of respect. And I think that says so much.
It really does.
About his character. You know, it's easy to be nice to the people who you think you need to be nice to.
To the people who you think can help you.
Right.
But it's a true mark of character.
Yes.
To treat everyone with that same level of kindness and respect.
Absolutely.
Regardless of their station in life.
It's been amazing, hasn't it?
It really has.
Like taking this deep dive into Ratan Tata's world.
It's given us so much to think about.
I know, and we've just scratched the surface.
I know there's so much more to his story.
There's so much more to explore.
Absolutely.
But I think we've gotten a really good sense of who he was.
Of the kind of leader he was.
As a leader.
As a human being.
As a human being.
Absolutely.
And I think there's so much that we can all learn from him.
Oh, absolutely.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what resonated most with you?
Oh, that's a tough one.
What's one takeaway that you're going to kind of carry with you from this conversation?
You know, I think for me, it's that idea of leading with empathy.
Yeah.
You know, really understanding that business is about people.
It's not just about the numbers.
It's not just about the numbers. It's about the human impact of those decisions.
The ripple effect.
Exactly.
I love that.
How about you?
I think for me, it's that idea of bringing your whole self to the table.
Yeah.
Like not being afraid to show your personality, your sense of humor.
To be human.
Yeah, to be human.
Yeah.
And to really connect with people on a human level.
Absolutely.
Because I think that's what makes a leader truly effective.
I agree.
So there you have it.
There you have it.
Ratan Tata.
A man, the myth, the legend.
The man, the myth, the legend.
That's right.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive.
We sure did.
Into his life and his leadership.
And we hope you learned a lot.
And as always,
we
encourage you to continue the conversation.
Yes.
In the comments below.
Let us know what resonated with you.
What surprised you.
What you learned.
What you're still curious about.
Absolutely.
And if you want to learn even more,
don't forget to check out
about Ratan Tata and the Tata Group.
Tata's Leadership Experiment.
Make sure you subscribe to Book Reviews 1 on YouTube.
And don't forget to like and share this deep dive.
With your friends.
With your family.
With your colleagues.
With your pets.
Thanks for joining us.